Only question is there going to be a real artist to help clean this up? A short, unparalleled history of mysticism. The very first person to become more conscious than those around him, and thus could see more of what life was all about, was so excited and delighted that he tried to tell everyone. And they originally took him to be a comedian, telling jokes. But when he dismissed this label and pressed on, the people decided that he was a satirist, attempting to make some kind of moral point. But after he too rejected this mantle and continued his comments, most began to just ignore him, concluding that what he was saying was either irrelevant or else untrue. Concluding this, just like life told him to. Daddy, yes, son. I was about to ask you one of those light-hearted questions that would make the last news item seem more like a bit of humor and thus relieve, right here at the end, any possible unpleasant pressure on the minds of the viewers. Yes, my boy, I was expecting something like that. Daddy? Yes. I think I'll pass this time and really turn up the potential heat. How ordinary thinking came about. As man's larger brain made it increasingly easier for him to physically survive, he found he had unexpected amounts of free time on his hands, with nothing actually to do. So, after much reflection, deliberation, and consideration, he decided, hey, why not just let the old mind run loose all the time, even when it's not doing anything in particular, and just see what'll happen? Hey, history buffs, why not? Our inspirational thought for today. One man believed that he was bent, tired, stressed, and burdened with the woes of the world, but came to find out he was just overweight. There was once a man who had two sides to his brain, or mind if you prefer, which he named, like is done sometimes in business operations, and I'm quoting now, Cornwally, Del Franco, and Bloomerwally. Then, in an effort to concentrate their individual strengths, he consolidated their names into a single entity to be known henceforth as Corn Bloomer Old Frank Del Wally Wally. Noting that any step, no matter how small, on the road to increased clarity is always in order. A viewer writes, in regard to something said on a recent program, that perhaps justice would be more widely served if men went out in a fashion more physically similar to how they arrived, to wit, the possibility of burying people naked. Well, this started me to thinking, and it seems we might extend this idea in a way that could be even more pertinent to the totality of man. And that is, lay out the corpse with the skull opened up so that all may see what a lifetime of activity therein has accomplished. Sincerely, etc. One man's mind said to him, hey, nobody's fooling me. I know what that last item was insinuating. And for the life of me, I can't understand why you keep hanging around people who do nothing but pick on me. And the man replied, come on, we've been through this already. But his mind continued to pout. Fact, anybody can tell anybody else anything they want to. Fact, oh plenty. Those who actually know anything worth telling don't. And the all-male chorus of dazed and disoriented exterminators cried out, rats! One guy used to tell his thoughts, hey man, don't make me mad. And they'd say, we didn't do nothing. And he'd reply, you make me mad just being here. One day a guy asked a mystic, is it hard doing what you do? And he replied, don't ask me, ask yourself. As the runners raced past the International Reviewing Stand, one of the judges said to another, You can always tell the English, you can always tell the Dutch, and you can always tell a mystic, but, and his colleague interrupted him and said, yeah, I know, but you can't tell them much. No, replied the first judge, I was going to say you can always tell a mystic by the special striped shirt he wears. Rat, said the second judge. The gaming tables and the limits of perception. If they could suddenly be made aware of what's going on in life, many a man would cry out, all bets are off. The same players who never had anything of value on the table to begin with. Ordinary men seriously debating the issues of the day. That's what I'm about to describe, like a definition. Ordinary men seriously debating the issues of the day. Imbecilic slaves on an unperceived plantation discussing how things will improve once they move from labor to management. Helios noted to Prometheus, I don't care what they say, I think humans are kind of cute in a way. Yeah, Pro replied, if they'd keep their mouth shut. Ah, come on, big guy, you know humans aren't supposed to do that. And by the by, in a somewhat related area, one man has recently presented a theory that claims cilia and cerebus never actually existed, but were man's unconscious projections into a mythical context of their own brain being divided into the two parts that it is. Why, stopped one man to muse, why will men admittedly eat and drink more than they actually need, yet never do anything similar with their minds? He later altered this to read, why do they never do anything similar willfully with their minds? Those who castigate man's institutions for their failure to perform are bigger fools than those they barb. Still legal in all 50 states. A definition. Ordinary thoughts, pyramid schemes for the mind. Today's kindergarten question. Did men conceive of myth, legend, allegories, and the like because they could not see what is going on directly, or they could not bear what they saw directly, or because they could not directly describe what they directly saw? If any of your answers contain the word yes a minimum of 3 times, then you may move on to the 3rd grade if you like. The reason mystics have 2 sides to their brain is so that one side can just sit still while the other side does all the grunt work. One day one man thought, my God, what would the world be like if man's other organs were as unfettered and free as his mind? Then counter thought, my God, our stomachs might have invented the electric light bulb. Moral, don't be so damn quick to pick on any one part of man's overall. And every important human idea is a key word. Remove this word and the efficacy of the idea collapses. Your mission, young mystics, should you choose to accept it, is to get out there, in yourself that is, and remove those damn key words. Once upon a time, there was a man who wanted to sell a special type of vegetables to people, but no one wanted to buy. So he tried sticking them in the eye, and they still wouldn't buy. So he tried throwing the damn things at them, but they'd duck. So he tried announcing that he would no longer offer them for sale, and no one cared. So, well, I know he did something else. I just can't remember right now what it was. Safeguards for after private showers. If you call other people twits long enough, they'll finally begin to believe that you are. Or as life would say to local reality every time it'd speak of suicide, threats of self-destruction carry very little weight with he who brought you about your creation. And now those so proclived and inclined may silently ponder the possible pertinence of the above regarding the intellectual denigration of others and its ultimate reward, along with the byplay described between reality and life, as it might all relate to the fact that men can talk to themselves and believe that it constitutes thinking, and vice versa. There are few sights as pathetic as that of an ordinary-minded person trying to seriously analyze reality as they perceive it. While in the normal midst of his everyday affairs, specifically involved in a particular matter we have no need to go into, a man came up fairly short and said to himself, "It's truly amazing how stupid you can be if you really put your mind to it." Thinking. A poem. Oh, you can think about this, and you can think about that. You can think about this, and you can think about that. Oh, you can think about this, and you can think about that. You can think about this, and you can think about that. Oh, you can think about this, and you can think about that. You can think about this, and you can think about that. The end. Thank God. Oh, and don't you wish, I think it was written there. I assume it was the author's private note to the reader. Perhaps a most pertinent present crucible by which to properly divide up men would be to ask them if they consider the statement, "life is alive," to be a fact or a theory. Although the way of the mystic is not one of humor based on criticism, you could find a degree of, let us say, transcendental satire, but not in attacking the foolishness or immorality of others, but rather in regard to what they claim to be their aims and their less than optimum efficiency, and less than their optimally efficient approaches thereto. Efforts exerted in the attempt to change behavior is the ultimate camouflaged hideout of the weak and dim-witted. In reference to his own seemingly pointed comments, one man said, "Remember, I don't attack anything real, only reality." The people gathered before the castle gate and began to chant, "We want drugs! We want drugs!" And from up above, the brain shouted back, "I'm working as fast as I can." How would you figure 41 minutes of silence on a videotape go? No, I think about it, not as bad as some 41 minutes worth of extended serious analyzation. And well, let's try this, since some of you people, I even get letters, people writing and postcards that say, "Ha ha." Since for some, well, contrary to the amount of, it sounds like sort of pointed laughter I just heard, I never did take it to be a sarcastic postcard. I thought that they were just, since I couldn't hear them, that they were just saying, "Ha ha, we agree." Or that, "Yes, I do find it funny." But since some people seem to find some of this humorous, it might be apropos here to ask ourselves. No. Although the way of the mystic is not one of humor based on criticism, you could find a degree of, let us say, transcendental satire, a term I made up with great effort, but not in attacking the foolishness or immorality of others, which, if you recall, or if anybody knows, satire is distinguished from like parody, speaking literally for no particular reason other than the fact that the human mind can, without any extraordinary purpose, distinguish between certain forms of humor. The difference between parody and burlesque and lampoon, satire. But satire is technically or historically was limited to an attack, a humorous attack normally, but an attack on folly and vice. of course, clothed in something else as a literary device. And so, I was saying here that although the way of the mystic is not one of humor based on criticism, you could find a degree of, let us say, transcendental satire. Although I continue to say that some people find some of this humorous, I assume that you know damn well that I'm not surprised at some of it, since I'm the one who said it or wrote this, that someone would laugh. But the point was not originally to create humor any more than you can find old stories supposedly having to do with some mystical work. Well, I say you can. It's getting more and more scarce, and they are particularly in short supply in the Western world for some reason. I'll leave it up to you to worry about. That was long enough, by the way. That is, you're hard-pressed to find anything even resembling humor, let us say, in the Bible. Offhand, I'm not a biblical scholar, but offhand I can't think of one single humorous joke or anecdote in the Bible. And even moving into the Mideast, the Quran, we have a similar problem. It's just a similar shortage, to say the least. Just a dearth of humor came from that wise man's mouth. You get further over there, and there are certain stories that seem to be humorous. But humor, as I've tried to point out to you, ordinary humor always has an element of hostility in it. It is always aggressive. It is always a form of criticism. All you got to do is take any humor, any hostility, any aggression out of any ordinary joke, anything that ordinarily makes you laugh. All you got to do is take out any possible aggression. You don't have to analyze it psychologically. Just look at it and realize that somebody could be offended by it. Somebody in the joke, in the story. That somebody, you might say, well, they're real touchy, but just look at whoever could be offended by the punchline, change the punchline around, normally take one word, and just change that one word, the joke ain't funny. The one key word's gone, the humor has disappeared, plus the aggression has. So in all forms of humor, whether it be satire, parody, lampoon, or whether it was just outright somebody saying, here's a joke to tell you, at the ordinary level there will always be some degree of aggression, hostility in it, or people will not laugh. And it's just based upon the dual rhythm, the dual fuel running what appears to be a three-dimensional reality. They ought to clean up the air. I know they've done something about gasoline. Are some of these segues? Yeah, I guess they are. You can clean up the fuel from cars. It's the fuel from people's minds that makes some people slightly ill, but so few that I don't think there's any chance any governmental agency will ever even show it any concern whatsoever. Okay. All humor has some form of criticism in it. And no matter how many times I might have said, preface some remark I was going to make and pull out an example from ordinary life, which is the only way that any of this can offer a threshold, much less a foyer into something. To get anybody going, you got to put out examples that sounds like that you're starting to speak about something that might make some sense and that they might be interested in. Such as say, well, all right, here's something going on in the halls of Congress, or here's the latest from the grand world of the Pope. Something people, oh yeah. You kind of have to trick the mind, but now you should know how to do it yourself. It doesn't take much effort. You have to start off with something that sounds as though this could be of some ordinary interest and pertinence, and you have to sort of slip it in. If you know how to do it, if you can get it inside the door, then you can slap it around. You make it sit on a whoopee cushion, give it a joy buzzer, say glad to see you, make fun of it. But you got to get it inside. And so often I preface the remarks by saying, now I was going to mention religion, but remember, I'm not attacking religion. I can say that until, cows learn to tap dance. And it won't do any good, because we've got two types of people as always in the world. The people who enjoy, we're talking about quite ordinary people who enjoy criticism. And they especially enjoy it in the form of humor, because if you're somewhere and someone makes a joke and it's at the expense of someone, which it always is to some degree, it's some form of aggression expressed, and you laugh, you feel as though the tacit understanding, the tacit agreement, beyond anything printed on the ticket that you received in lieu or in proof of your payment to enter into the club or the concert, part of the tacit agreement is that you and the comedian, by you laughing, by him coming up with it, you are superior to the people you're laughing at. That, boy, talk about some dumbass people, and the tacit part always is, well, thank God I'm not that big of a dumbass. So no matter how often I might say, well, that's not a criticism of whatever I'm about to say, people either hear it as criticism, no matter what you say. You can say, this is not criticism, I'm just describing things in a way you've never heard them described to try and get you to look into the crack, to see that reality is for a few people, reality is a real bad paste-up job. They have tried to re-facade Pompeii after Vesuvius rips through almost every night, and they go back every morning. This is reality compared to what life is, and they keep trying to plaster it up. And there's people that learn how to do that kind of work through a correspondence course. Plus, they're always drunk, kind of people that do that sort of work. But it's to get you to see, to apply an ordinary example from life. But see, if you take it as criticism, if you followed that allegory, if you take it as criticism, yeah, reality, what people normally call reality, is kind of a mishmash of a job. It's always jerry-rigged. It's always a bad job. Yeah. But don't stop there. The point is to realize it is a bad job. Remembering that I have temporarily divided up things into life and reality, and point out that what men normally consider reality is simply the mind's way to work with life. So the way we can talk ordinarily about life is to use the word reality and say, well, this is the way things are. Now, I know that's the way the mind says they are. But if you would consider why this sort of thing, not just me, but this sort of thing has always had to use examples from life, but then you should know by now, I suspect, that it's not a criticism of life. If it's a criticism of life, this sort of thing would have always been out on a crusade to help people. Yeah, to straighten people out, to show them the error of their ways. It would be charitable good work. If not charitable good work, it'd be the other form, pushy good work. Now, they're simply telling people what they should do. This never tells people what they should do, which immediately limits its appeal. In case you like to refer back to me pointing out that you made a grave error to ever underestimate the human desire to be pushed and pulled and led around and slapped around, and especially made to feel guilty. You poor son of a bitch. Oh, I love it. I love it when you say that. I'm sorry, I forgot. Did I say that was going to be an example between two people talking or a man talking to himself? Which sometimes I lose my place. Yeah, I know, don't you wish? That was somebody's mind talking from the bushes. That if you could see, that back to my, in the bad allegory, if I may say so. It's like, you understand, Pompeii, a city, civilization. Man's reality is continually crumbling. The forces of nature, read life, continue to every day, they just shake it like a big old plastered wall. Those of you that never lived in a cheap basement apartment. And every day it's like, it's more and more cracks, and it looks like it may fall, but man, that's part of his job. That's part of civilization's job. That's part of the general progress of the overall parade. Is that people go back and men continue to try and plaster over the cracks. And oftentimes they'll stick flowers in it. They try to put up decorative tiles. They'll even put up signs, don't look here, that kind of thing. But that is the purpose of the human mind, is to continually plaster over life and to call it reality. But nobody's mind, no one's mind is satisfied with reality. No sane person, because proof of sanity is you're not satisfied. You always want to do better. You like, especially like to help other people, because it's, at great expense to yourself. I mean, it'll give you less time to work on you, but hey, if a man can't be charitable and help his fellow man, what kind of man is he? Ordinary. Weak and dim-witted. Read ordinary. But, besides me or anybody that knew what they were doing, holding up life and saying, look at this, but not as a criticism, but just look at this, on your own, you'd finally realize, yeah, you don't have to criticize. There's nothing to criticize. The wall itself, life, as it presented to man's mind, seems to apparently, no matter how fast you plug it up, no matter how fast you try and plaster over something, no matter at least how fast men stand around, how quickly, they debate the problem and discuss it. The wall, it's like somebody's continuing going, It continues. Crack starts somewhere, you plaster it, and it cracks somewhere else. That, ordinary people would take as a criticism. They'd go, you're right, life's falling apart. No. So you weren't listening. Reality seems to be falling apart, but life's not falling apart. No, I guess I could get an ordinary person go, yeah, all right, reality's falling apart. And I can say, yeah, but that's still not what I was pointing out. I simply pointed that out to point out that that's what you normally think, reality's falling apart. And here's an example. And they go, good, yeah, that's true. Now, so didn't you hear what I just said? The wall, everything is continually showing up cracks and falling apart. Doesn't that hint anything to you? That your mind, no matter where it looks, no matter what it tries to patch up, that all it's got to do is somebody goes, oh, look over here. And you look, and I'll be down. Another crack. About the time you thought things might be okay, by the time you get over the migraines, you start spitting up blood. It's just one thing after another. But it doesn't hint to anybody that they finally begin to think. It was a private joke, I'm sorry. That's ill-mannered. And again, we have the strange, bizarre, in a positive sense, if I may say so, justice of life is that the more educated, the more sophisticated, the more learned our ordinary people, the more that they are supposed to know such things as the history of the world, or the history of man, or the history of their general area. And those are the very people that should be, sooner or later, look around, whether they heard it from me or somebody else, but that someday you would think, just on their own, when they're sitting there bewailing the fact that I'll be surprised if civilization lasts another weekend. Now, I'm talking about educated, sophisticated historians, theologians, people, the leading intellects of any place and time, that someday it just strike them sitting there that this is the story of history as I know it. Why is it that I think I have rediscovered the danger, the imminent danger, that things may come apart right before our very eyes, thanks to us? Thanks to us. You ever see anybody do that? Have you ever done it? Not the ordinary mind. So, if I said, look up here, here is life, you call it reality. Let's assume I was addressing a group of ordinary people and they would listen for a minute. For whatever reason, I said, consider that everything you perceive, everything from morality, the arts, education, politics, just life, the social order, the future of humanity, reality, no matter where you look, it's cracking. It seems to be crumbling. And it seems to be getting worse. Of course, it helps if they're over, nowadays, at least 22 or 23, because nowadays life is speed the parade up. Most of you are already beginning to hormonally die by that time. You know, yeah, it is. You know, they're not making music like they did when the Nirvana first came out. You know, just music. You know. It's no longer real good garage music. It's people living upstairs over the garage. Probably middle-class people with jobs. Never mind, we're going. But I could tell these ordinary people, is it, you know, I say, I'm going to describe life as you should know it, that it's just continually crumbling, just cracks running everywhere. And they go, well, yeah, I knew that. And you go, does anything at all strike you strange about it? You're well read, yes. You know something about the history of, let's just say, Western civilization, yes. You know something, you read the literature, back to the Greek dramatists, the historians. Oh, yeah. But that combined with what you believe that life's falling apart here, that we point out all the things, that they go, you don't find anything curious about that. What do you mean? Of course, that's a dead giveaway. The class is over as soon as somebody says, what do you mean? When you see the obvious, there's never, after the obvious, no one ever says, well, what do you mean? Nobody ever reaches Buddhahood. Nobody ever becomes enlightened and then goes, what the hell was that? You are not misled to take my word for that. It's one of the few things. People never go, well, what's the meaning of that? What I was trying to get you to see, so we could press on, is no matter how it is preempted by warnings, when you start talking about life, the ordinary mind of anyone, not anyone in particular, not any particular group of people, it has nothing to do with education, the ordinary sane human mind will take any description as soon as you say, well, let's talk about life. there immediately. The mind goes, yeah, stick it to them. And especially if you point out an area and say, well, today or tonight, let's discuss, by God, religion. Then all of everybody that's wired up to have some complaint against religion go, yeah, boy. You didn't say, let's attack religion. I said, let's talk about religion. People go, yeah, let's talk about politics. This is according to how you're wired up, whatever your hobby is mentally. And you think, yeah, those lying politicians. The mind just immediately does it. It then appears, if you say anything lighthearted, that you make the joke of getting into the word satire, the whole area. Then if you say anything else, which I have been doing, it is almost dishonest. It relieves the pressure, and there is some possibility it helps people to see that you have built up what appears to be the perfect setup of an attack. That you point out something about religion or politics or just the social mores of people, and you describe it, say some little comment. And if you do it right, it's something that's very well known. And they go, yeah, yeah. And they wait then, because they hear it as criticism at the ordinary level. And you can leave it there, and it seems serious. And they might agree, let's say, that they go, you're right. What they thought they heard you say, you're right. Religion, just sucks. Politics is just, that's a drain on everybody. We should all be anarchists. Whatever it is you think you heard, but you take it as criticism, not any sort of description. And one of the possible uses, and I repeat possible, by no means guaranteed, is then to put a little slight, lighthearted spin at the end, and it can sort of relieve the pressure, and you've got just a momentary, not any more time than you had originally on the assembly line, if you recall, when you and Life, when Life looked at you to make sure that you were genetically sound enough to be tossed into the main hopper, that you rolled past, and you and Life looked at you, and you had a split second. It was doing its job, but you had a split second to look back. But, as my story goes, almost everyone blinks and looks away, and you're down the line. In that same way, to use humor, if it's put in a certain way and people are trying to listen in a certain way, after you have described something, even though they took it, the mind took it as being criticism, regardless of the prior warnings, then if you do it, before they can really get into, yeah, whatever it was that they thought they heard about politics or the arts, and yeah, and then you suddenly throw in a little lighthearted spin to where it makes people go, ah! They got a split second that they could wonder, I was about to go, and I went, ha! What the hell's going on? Which is the same thing as when I keep thinking the wall's coming apart, and it's been coming apart forever. My heroes, my literary heroes that I always read about, they said the same thing 5,000 years ago. You got a split second, but as I said, it could be doing people a disservice, because you can either have a chance to look through the crack, or it does just absolutely relieve the pressure, and you just take it as a joke. Which, of course, I got to point out, is always based on the nature of things on this level. The glue or the grease method, if you could take it as a complete joke, then would be very close to something. But you can't take it as well, that's funny, because if you just take it as being, well, that's funny, then you're still holding on to the critical part. You think, well, it was a joke made at the expense of politics or religion. But if you could see it as a total joke, then we'd have something. Of course, if you see it as a total joke, should I point out, then you're very close. So there's the danger that someday you might actually begin to look around in a certain way and realize it's not unfair to look at reality and say, well, what a joke. So, best protect yourself now and not think about such things. I was pointing out, though, that you could, even though it's not criticism. One other thing, since you don't think I was referring to me or anything in particular, I just had to use me to make a shortcut example. That is, of you and I doing some sort of verbal tango. The people out there in TV land, don't be dancing in your chairs either. I'll tell your mother. That to call it a satire, to describe the kinds of things that make you tend to elicit laughter at times, To call it a satire, I was going to point out, to compare it to something, is that the normal technical definition and distinguishing aspect of satire is that it is an attack on folly and vice. Now, if you notice, that is the heart of religion, which by all intents and purposes, by all normal appearances, should have been, and many people still suspect was or could be now or whatever, should be the kind of public facade of the real mystical effort. I mean, because nothing else verbally, nothing else ritualistically, nothing in any manner comes as close to the mystical way. Well, of course, lacrosse, but besides that. Well, I've been getting letters complaining that I don't use Native Americans enough in my examples. Well, it's been a toss-up lately. It's either between Native Americans complaining I don't or Lithuanians complaining that I do. You can't please everybody. That's why we have international lacrosse matches. Satire, foolishness or folly or vice. And notice that is the heart of religion. No matter how you cut it, any public aspect of religion, which is simply another aspect of government, or vice versa, it's just the handmaiden of life pushing civilization forward. And so satire seems to be a quite acceptable use, even within what might appear to be a mystical context or a professed mystical context, to satirize human nature, to satirize reality, to satirize life, no matter what the audience thought or preferred to call it, but as an attack on the folly and vice of man. If you do that, you're done for. I'm going to continue the item, believe it or not. It says, but you could see, in spite of all me saying that it's not regular satire, and I call it transcendental satire, if you can see it in a certain way, that although you're not attacking the folly and vice of humanity, since there are none, what you're doing is pointing out or offering up to take men's aims as they claim them to be. Now see, here's the critical difference, not just between me and the mystical stuff of the past, but how you need to see it that's working within your own nervous system, within your own mind. Your mind wants to play the part that I'm ascribing to ordinary people, ordinary minds. That's the very part that your thinking normally does. To wit, take the aims that humanity professes. No critical comment yet. You can't even plug that in. Just take, if you ask yourself, what do people say, well, how about the American dream, since we're here in Italy and we won't take it personally. And they say, but the great American dream, or the great democratic dream, or the great dream of a free market economy, the great Russian dream. Somebody's always describing something. Or if you get people down to an individual level, which is of no great importance, but if you tried to ask yourself now, what are the aims of, make it manageable perhaps to yourself to start with, if you say, what are the general aims of people, men and women, sane, decent people today in the United States or in the Western world? What are the aims? Yeah, come up with anything you want to. Steal it from anybody. See, that's the difference. I'm not pointing out what they are. I'm not saying, well, here's what their aims should be. Take humanity's aims, then compare it to the efficiency by which they work once you begin to see what's going on, or if you'll start glimpsing the kind of examples I throw up. It's not the folly and the vice. It's to take the goals that life makes men profess, which is simply talking about tomorrow. They're talking about where the parade will be someday in the future. It's not there. Take their aims, and this is not good for everybody, of course. Very few people find this funny at all. You know, I admit that right up front. If we announce this as the Great American Mystical Review, musical comedy and seriousness regarding life and other things weird, and etc., then under that, if that was the ad, I might put a slogan like, we admit, not everyone will find this funny, but a few are going to find it the funniest thing they ever heard. But not laughing at somebody. It's to realize what your mind and humanity's mind, what life makes people say, well, here are our aims in life, or here are the aims of us decent, God-fearing, American, or Allah-fearing, whoever you are, people. And I'm taking it. No comment, no criticism, because it's life speaking, it's not them. But then to look at the aim that they profess, that this is what a good person should be striving for, a good father, mother, husband, wife, American, Italian, Christian, Jew, that by God, this is my life. This is what I'm struggling for. Oh, I may get a little distracted, but this is the kind of aim for any decent human. All you've got to do, remember, hold back the criticism. We're just taking what they said. It'd be like you're staying on a roadside, and a guy pulls up in a car and he goes, I'm trying to get to Cincinnati. Can you tell me how to get there? What kind of idiot would get all excited and go, you don't go to Cincinnati? Right? I mean, the man just says, I'm going to go to Cincinnati. Is there any chance could you direct me which way is interstate? You realize if anybody responded in any sort of judgmental way or began to try and hector the guy or try to convert him, like, wait a minute, a stranger. You got to remember, man, his wife, just decent people, pull up, and there you are, staying by the road, working in a field, and you try to talk them out of going to Cincinnati. You understand? Well, see, you understand that's insanity. That's the same kind of attitude I'm trying to get you to see, to hold on to for a second, that humanity says, here are our goals, to be decent people. Just, you understand what I'm saying? I don't have anything particular in mind. It's the general goal of civilization, to become better people, to become better fed, to spread the wealth, to be charitable, to help the weak, to feed the hungry, or whatever you do to the hungry. Give them a coupon. For humanity to move forward in a decent, profitable way. Once you begin to see what's going on, this is what I was intending by the term transcendental satire, because it has a use. I should be truthful. For a long time now, I thought it had a potential use, so I should be honest. I said thought. To take the aims of humanity, and once you have any idea yourself, once you can get any glimpse of anything resembling a objective, God forbid I said that, cold-blooded, clinical, less involved view of what the wall is of reality, that you can just sort of get a glimpse and get all involved with your judgment, just the traffic of your own mind, and then you consider the professed aims of humanity, which will accept them. We're not making a comment. And then look at the efficiency by which they operate in the attempt to achieve those aims. And if you can just look and hold off all judgment, it then, I hate to say the words, but this is just between us, it then ranges somewhere between funny and pathetic. Now, that's only to a few people, not everybody else, because if they could do it differently, that is, if life wanted things operated in a more efficient manner or a faster manner, life does not need the likes of us to say, hey, I'll tell you how to help things around. I tried to cover that in one of the news items. I sort of did it backwards, but if you were listening, there was a wrap-up of an earlier item on the same page that said that every time reality, local reality, would start talking about suicide to life, what you got to understand would be a form of complaining and like, boy, why am I having to put up with this? Whatever it would say. I hate to put words in local reality's mouth. But it said that every time local reality would even begin to use the term, just refer to the possibility of suicide, that life said, threats of self-destruction carry very little weight to one who was responsible for your creation. Did anybody find any significance? That was me saying that life does not need the likes of us to say, well, hey, I can tell you how to speed things along. In case none of you ever thought about it. Hardly anybody ever does. It makes the word hubris sound like a throwaway line in some Borscht Belt comedian's routine. Because that's the same thing as people that, bemoan the fact that they're a sinner and that God's going to get them. Out of 6 billion people, you're so negatively important that the God's going to look down and go, I've seen some bad things. I had to wipe out whole cities, Pompeii, Sodom and Gomorrah. I mean, thousands of people were just giving me heartbreak. I mean, they were being so yucky. But this one guy, boy, I'm gonna make him wish he was Job when I get through with him. Back to the general area I was trying to get you to consider. To take the aims that life makes men profess. Remember, we're not addressing humanity. I'd be addressing a few people if there were a few people that could hear it. It's not to make fun of it. It's not to make fun. That would be simply, that's why I keep bringing up my figure of Captain Irony and making him crash and run into walls. Because irony is like a real safe cop-out for people who can't stand the crack between the laugh and the initial pressure that brought the laugh, is go, how ironic. They got to rediscover it, generation after generation, minute after minute. How ironic it is that many of the world's great religions ended up killing people in the name of saving them and helping them. Boy, write that down. God, talk about you're an insightful person. I figured that out. Yes, I did. People fighting over religious reasons. Are you kidding me? Come on. It is not ironic, see. That would be the other way out. The irony being that the result was unexpected from what it was just unexpected. That you do not expect, if you're an ordinary mind, that men will claim that they want to do better, and they do worse. Well, that's human nature for you. No, it's not. Oh, well, that's the flaws of humanity. Not hardly. I mean, we could be talking flaws here, but we're not talking humanities. Say we to the guy who just said that, you understand. The insinuation being, and he went, what do you mean insinuation? It's trying to have to play two parts, and one of them dumber than the other. I think. Oh, well. It's a good thing we have actors around here equipped and trained for the job. If you begin to see, without looking at any critical way, you can feel it in your own nervous system, what appears to be, the claim that seems natural, the aim that seems proper and natural for men. And those who get involved with this, they even take it a step further. They think it is a natural, proper aim that I want to be even better than just acceptable. I want to be better than, picked out some religious name. I want to be better than a Muslim or a Jew or a Buddhist. I want to transcend that. I want to be a real one. I want to be more conscious. I want to be enlightened, etc. Take the aim as stated, and they seem just as proper as they can be, and then look at the efficiency by which people approach it, and something to a mystic stinketh. Or, put another way, as I said, verges between pathetic and funny, and for those of you who ever heard the term, kind of pathetically funny. In case any of you have ever seen a turtle put on a cape and try to jump off a ledge and fly. I could have beat that. Put on a cape and tights and then try to learn to run faster so that it might actually reach takeoff speed. That's more like it. Take that for the original. Then beyond all that, when you can do it to yourself and you realize that I have been full of great hopes, I've got more good intentions than I do dandruff flakes. I am just filled with great hope, expectation, and that's it. Okay. Is there any chance you back away from the wall that goes by your name and do what I just said about trying a kind of transcendental, satirical look at yourself? That is, you're not attacking your folly, you're not attacking your vice, because there are none. You're not foolish, and you're not viceful. But the possibility of a kind of transcendental, satirical view is look at what you do. We're removing it now from the general population to you. Look at it as what you claim your aim to be, and then look at what you do. And you don't find something sort of pathetically funny? I'll refer to another one that I know, I was pretty sure made no particular sense when I read it, that said, efforts exerted to change one's behavior is the ultimate camouflaged hideout of the weak and stupid. I said dim-witted, but I figured we'd up the stakes. As if somebody dim-witted would care that You now call them stupid instead of dim-witted. Hey, I could resent that. What do people try to do? Even if it ever crossed their mind that there is a curious, if not unacceptable, gap I periodically sense between what I claim to be my aims and interests and what I do to fulfill them. So let's see. And this happens to plenty of would-be mystics. We're not making fun of just overweight housewives and overweight home husbands. But what will a person do, even those given to mystical activities? I know what I'll do. I'll start sitting 10 hours a day instead of 8. Or in fact, I will lose weight. I will shave my head and paint a picture of some guru on it. I will quit drinking. I'll quit smoking. I'll take up drinking. They'll do something to change behavior. It won't work. That's why the item said efforts extended. Because as long as you spend effort trying to change behavior, life is proud of you. You're right in step. No one's going to give you any grief. And there is nothing funny about you. Well, there's nothing to be laughed at publicly. It's only mystics that can stand around and punch each other in the ribs without touching each other and not look at you individually, just look at life and go, well. The only thing funny is not individuals. Which, since I mentioned satire, the others, as I point, stuff like lampoon and several of the terms had to do specifically with an attack on an individual or an individual artist and his style and his subject matter. From a more conscious view, once you see life, not from anybody's view, not from some other person's view, but once you see what life is opposed to what reality is, nobody's funny, nobody's silly, nobody's pathetic. It's just amazing, though, sort of, that people continue to get in line waiting for something that's going nowhere. They'll continue to play the role of imbecilic slave laborers on a plantation that they can't see, which I worked that one in on you as a, remember it was a definition that said that ordinary men sitting around or standing around seriously debating the issues of the day. And that's ordinary, decent, civil-minded, civic-minded, concerned people. That ordinary people, the presidents, rabbis, popes, commentators, all serious, ordinary people, them debating the issues of the day are like imbecilic slave laborers out on a plantation, and they've got no idea where they are, but they are engaged in quite meaningful conversations amongst themselves of how things are going to improve once they go from just being a straw boss, just kind of in charge of some of the crews, to actually owning the place. At least I had the decency. See, I didn't end up that news item and rubbing your face by going, yeah, right. Does anybody get the gist of it? To find out, I can make it worse, of course, but it's only worse if you can't think, if you can't see. It's like all the poor cows in the line to the arbitrage. You're waiting, not to meet God, but to meet Oscar Mayer and the Hormel brothers. And there's all these cows and sheep engaged in all this meaningful conversation about, and you understand, or you're supposed to, when I said discussing the issues of the day, it's always critical. It's always things that are falling apart, and it's been discussing it. A Democratic spokesman discussing this new Republican bill having to do with welfare or something. He's not discussing it. What he's discussing is how this is not going to work. And the tacit, if not outright, well, it wouldn't be tacit with a politician, he will then follow it up by saying, here's how it should be. It's cows in line to go in to meet their maker, but all the way in. And plus, you're not just in line. All the way up to there, you're doing grunt work. For those of you who've never been in the service, you're cleaning out toilets for life. But you're discussing very seriously. It's cows and sheep with suits and ties on and microphones in a public forum. They're discussing. They don't put it this way directly, but they're discussing how things will certainly improve once they get inside there and they're in charge. See, there's a bit of, you could say, obscure humor in there. And if you see that, that's the kind of good-natured humor it is about being alive. And sometimes the amazement, you just think, well, somebody, it's like coming from the sky, whatever the scientific statistics are, I don't know, but that a little meteor that once every 500 years has a 1 in 10,000 chance of hitting somebody, all right, or whatever it is. You think, well, surely there's a chance that in that same kind of statistical area that somebody, that if I keep wandering around, somebody one day is going to go, oh my God, and it's just going to hit them. And they go, well, I'll be down. But no,